For our next panel, we are going to go really deep into the role of AI first and AI-enabled companies. What is the demand for these, and what are the opportunities that they're facing? Now, there are some names on here that you're really going to recognize amongst our guests, including Nvidia, Hugging Face, and Scale AI. So you really could not get a lineup of three companies more at the heart of what is going on in the AI revolution right now. So with that, let's welcome our panelists. We have Bill Liao, partner at SOSV, who will be moderating our conversation. Patrick Tammer, Senior Investment Director and AI Advisor to the Canadian government from Scale AI. We have Derek Thomas, Chief Hugging Officer at Hugging Face, and Xiao, Director of Developer Relations at Nvidia. So for the role of AI first and AI-enabled companies, let's welcome our panel to the stage.
Ah, it's okay. Hello, welcome. We're going to have a little panel on AI, and you know what? We're already getting bifurcation in AI. What does it mean to invest in AI? There's this new term out there, AI first. Like, AI first sounds like a loyalty program. Actually, it just means that a company just does AI. That's all they do. And then there's this new category that's not AI first, which is all the things that are enabled by AI, which are AI-enabled businesses, where AI is supporting something in the business. And there's a lot of controversy about where is the place to put the bet. Like, do you invest in an AI-first company that has a new technology that is going to be a platform, or do you invest in something that's just going to use AI to do something better? And I have with me today Wei, Patrick, and Derek, and I'd just like you to just give a few words of introduction to each of you, just starting with you, Wei. Ladies first.
Good afternoon. My name is Wei. I'm the Director of Developer Relations for Nvidia at Middle East and Africa region. We work with a lot of developers that span across enterprise customers all the way to university students. So looking forward to have a great chat with my fellow panelists today. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name is Derek Thomas. I'm based in Abu Dhabi, so I've been here for a little over 7 years. I work for Hugging Face, and I'm affectionately called Chief Hugging Officer, but my day-to-day title is that I'm a pre-sales machine learning engineer, and so I work a lot in customer success and with over hundreds of our customers.
And I can say he really does give great hugs.
Hi everyone, excited to be here. Patrick Tammer, Senior Investment Director of the AI Investment Fund of the Canadian government. My commute was a bit longer than Derek's, came in from Toronto, so still a bit jet lagged and adjusting to the heat here, but it's great to be here. I probably have some other positions compared to Hugging Face and Nvidia. We mostly invest in AI-enabled companies, but we'll talk about that more throughout the panel.
Excellent. So first question goes to you, Wei. And it's this. And I'm going to ask you whether you can choose between which is your favorite child, right? Because you're invested across the space, you're an investment house as well as a hardware developer. Do you have a favorite? Do you prefer an AI-first company? Is that where you're focused? Or do you prefer the AI-enabled companies?
I would not say it's preference. I think AI-first companies and AI-enabled companies, they coexist. Nvidia definitely is an AI-first company. I think there are still a lot of myths about Nvidia. One myth I want to bust today is Nvidia is not a chip maker. We're not a hardware manufacturer. On top of the hardware platform, we do have a full range of software components to make Nvidia's hardware fully programmable. And because of this, we were able to build an AI ecosystem around us. We were able to enable a lot of AI-enabled companies out there.
Excellent. Thank you for that answer. Derek, given that, Wei is playing both sides of the house. You must have seen things that are just not business value in one or the other. Give us a couple of examples that are just like,
So the problem with AI today is that how do you actually know what is valuable? There's so much hype out there. There's so many new things. It's so fast-paced. And one of the typical things I see is when you have something like RAG that's, you can't get real information on. You see tutorial after tutorial, and it's roughly the same things. We had a customer that's so good at keeping up with the latest techniques, but they didn't have a test set, right? They're missing out on the fundamentals of AI, and they're chasing after the latest LLM. And so I'd say that really some of the basics don't always come into play when you're looking at something, especially for newer non-AI native companies. So I'd say for the AI-enabled companies, it's a little bit more challenging to be able to sift through the noise.
So Patrick, you actually think that AI first is overhyped. Like, we're at the end of the hype cycle, right? So what are the exciting AI-enabled companies if AI first is... And by the way, how can you possibly say that AI first is at the end of the hype curve?
Yeah, I guess my opinion is a bit more extreme here on the panel, but I do believe there is a huge opportunity in terms of investment into AI-enabled companies. I think the last couple of years, rightfully so to a certain degree, have been very much focused on what we would label, AI-first companies like OpenAI, including Hugging Face and Nvidia. They've seen really tremendous growth. I think AI-enabled companies to a bigger degree are still overlooked. I give you an example from public markets. Microsoft, for instance, if you just look at the past 12 months, I think Microsoft stock went up by around 30%. A lot driven, of course, due to the partnership with OpenAI. There's another stock that went up by 120%. And most of you might not guess who that is, but it's actually GE, a company that you wouldn't naturally associate with AI, but they made very strong investments. Predix, for instance, their industrial IoT platform, it's a very good example of how they integrated AI into their business, drove their stock up by 120%. So that's just one example. We don't really think about that when we have our mainstream discussions, but tons of opportunity to invest and take advantage of those valuation gains through AI.
Mind you, Apple's stock with the AI stuff hasn't necessarily benefited as much, but I agree with you. GE is a nice one, a little gem, and for those stock market players, it'd be nice to see what's the next GE in the space. And speaking of that, there are sticking points still in AI. What are they?
So the hard part about AI is that I think that a lot of people, and myself included, if you rewind your clocks back to, say, January 23, now ChatGPT's been around for a couple months, and everything changed, but it still took a long time at the same time, right? In my mind, the technology was the hard part, and I fully believe that despite being in AI for a long time, despite being around technology for a long time, and I was wrong. And it took me a long time, because I'm kind of a slow learner at times, to realize that the adoption was the hard part. And so, you're asking Wei about the favorite child. My favorite child is definitely going to be AI enabled, because they're the ones who have to kind of figure this out, and there are a lot more of them, and there's a lot more industries they're going to touch. But their hard part is actually getting the adoption to make meaningful sense and meaningful business value, whereas a lot of other people, granted the only other category being AI first, can kind of do that for free.
But that's kind of every startup, right? Like, literally every startup has an adoption problem.
So not necessarily the effects or the product, but taking advantage of what's already out there. So in my mind, I thought it was like, wow, how can you actually deliver a chatbot? And that was very difficult for a long time. But the solution's already out there. It's super easy, right? But no, it's people that are the hard part.
Can I chime in here?
Please chime in, but also I want to ask you too, have you seen a paradigm shift around this in the last year?
Absolutely, absolutely. Exactly like what Derek mentioned, when ChatGPT first came out, I think when at the first phase of generative AI, we probably had a hammer, and everything we saw was a nail. We're trying to utilize generative AI to resolve any type of questions. Apparently, it was not feasible. And also because of the technical challenges at that time, for startups especially, it's not cost effective to build your own large language model solution. However, because of the proliferation of the AI first type of companies, we began to see two technology advancements in the ecosystem last year. One is open source large language model. As Falcon large language model, because it's open source, other players can build your solutions on top of that. Second is the RAG technology you talked about. Now you do not have to fine-tune a large language model from the very beginning. And because of this technology advancement, because of this foundation, AI-enabled companies can build solutions for different verticals on top of it.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to you, Patrick. Just from an investor perspective, how do you risk adjust between AI first and AI enabled? Because like what you just said there is the barrier to entry is low and lowering all the time. Well, actually from a startup founder perspective, seeing the barrier to entry collapse doesn't necessarily de-risk my startup. So how do you compare the risks?
Yeah, I think it's really understanding how those two types of companies differ in their needs, in their business model, in their growth path, and hence in their risk profile as an investor. For us, we, as I said before, we are focused on AI-enabled companies. So we really have to understand how they operate. For us, a lot of them are actually in the manufacturing supply chain space. They often already have an existing business model or solution, and now they have specific use cases. For instance, machine vision quality control that they're integrating in their existing solution to make it more efficient. But that means that most of the time their speed to value or the time to value is a lot shorter. They also don't need like tremendous sums of money like AI first companies, which have to invest a lot in R&D upfront. So it's a very different profile that we invest in. Arguably, of course, we will have fewer unicorns in our portfolio. That's kind of a given. So for us, it's a bit more, it sounds a bit boring, but it's a bit more lower risk, lower return. But I think, again, it's a niche where there's still less competition. If you have invested in Hugging Face or Nvidia or Cohere or OpenAI early on, good for you, right? That's great. But that's not every VC out there, so there's still opportunity in the AI-enabled space, I would say.
So Derek, what can AI-enabled, given that seems to be the hot sector, what can AI-enabled companies do to bridge the gap? Because like there is a chasm out there for all these startups.
Yeah, so I think it's an accelerator, right? And so whatever the business value gaps that are out there, the lower that barrier to entry becomes, the more players you have. And so I think it opens up new questions of differentiation rather than the gap. And so what was the gap today can be bridged by AI, but now there's new gaps because the people that are ahead, or the companies that are ahead, are starting to develop more things. And so, but at some point, things go so fast that what's actually the difference between it? Was it your head start? And I think that becomes less and less important, and it's more about the direction you're in, maybe the data you have. Time and time again with at least our customers, that's what I see, is that your data is what's special. There's all kinds of models out there. There's all kinds of techniques out there. Lots of people are doing them. Some people, maybe they're a little bit faster than you, but if you're able to leverage your data in ways that other people can't, that's what you have that they don't.
And is it your data? I mean, like, we are seeing a lot about data colonialism popping up, right? Is it really your data, or are you just harvesting somebody else's data and they just don't know it?
Well, I'm super biased with that, obviously, being at Hugging Face. So deploy privately. Don't necessarily give your data away to a closed-sourced company. And so if the data is what makes you special, why would you give that away, right? If Coca-Cola's recipe is what is special, they're not going to give that to Pepsi. And so keep your data to yourself. So I'm certainly a little bit biased on that.
Sorry, couldn't resist. I think we're on the same page. Wait. What are the startup opportunities in enabled and innovations that you're seeing recently that get you super excited?
I do think generative AI is entering the second stage. I work with the startups on a daily basis. Code generation tools certainly reached a level of maturity. Even at Nvidia internally, we began to utilize code generation tools to write software on behalf of engineers. Process automation, virtual assistant type of use cases began to penetrate different industry verticals. Here, specifically for the region, large language model in Arabic also reached the maturity level, and we began to see penetration.
Excellent. And Patrick, do you see a correction coming for any part of the industry?
I do think that a lot of the big AI first companies, there is a not unlikely scenario. I don't want to put a number on it, but I would say there's a not unlikely scenario that there will be a correction for those companies. Derek mentioned adoption. I'm a bit of a history nerd, but I don't want to go too deep into that. But if you look at other groundbreaking disruptive technologies before, the time it took for adoption to actually take off is actually quite substantial. And typically it only happened when you saw like those secondary wave of innovations coming through. So if you think about the internet has been around since the 60s, 70s, really only took off in the 90s, right? When we had personal computers, web browsers, really giving mass access to those tools. So I do think, especially related to Gen AI, it will be a bit similar. And I don't think people have fully realized or priced in that time that it will take to really take full advantage of those technologies. So there will be a bit of a phase, I think, where it will be disappointment with the potential. In the long run, I think it's still a tremendous disruptive technology, but I do think there will be a bit of a correction in the meantime.
Anybody else want to comment on that before the really tough questions start? No? Okay. Given the number of human deaths that AI has caused, that we can know that AI has already caused, do any of you see that as a major risk factor? And do you see that there's enough being done to protect human life versus AI?
I'm more than happy for anyone to take this one. This is a sticky one.
Please go ahead.
So I don't have anything insightful to offer, to be honest, but risk is inherent. And I'd be really curious if you can elaborate a little bit more. What are the AI AI-caused deaths that you're specifically speaking on?
Okay, so Facebook's algorithm, which is an AI, promoted anti-Rohingya sentiment in Myanmar and caused roughly 1 million people to be killed senselessly by amplifying negative social messages about Rohingya Muslims. And the only thing that protected Facebook from the mother of all lawsuits was Section 230 of the Communications Act, which protects content creators. But really, AI, it protects against platforms against content creators, but really AI is content creation. So firstly, is the security there? And secondly, isn't that a massive risk we're not factoring in? Because Section 230 is a very thin shield.
Yeah, I'd say that's terrible, and I'm not going to give you a but, I'm going to give you an and. That's why we invest heavily into ethics. And I think that, I have a lot of very kind colleagues that are in ethics, and so hopefully they take this the right way. If you rewind 5-6 years ago, and you're in AI ethics, my personal opinion wasn't wow, that's really neat and interesting. But now, exactly what you're talking about, that should be really important, right? We know a lot of ways things can go wrong. And I don't think in the example you're giving AI is inherent there. I mean, this is a recommender system from Facebook, right? It's not even what most people are using or developing, or any of the most companies are
the
developing.
Facebook algorithm is AI. Come on, inherently.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that's maybe not the forefront of AI.
I can give you 100 other examples too, right?
Sure. But now it's incredibly important, and now people are realizing, actually, this isn't just something on the side. This isn't something that's a topic that's just a nice to have. It actually should be core, right? We don't want toxicity from our LLMs. And we can see that even in trivial examples like, hey, I can get this chatbot to give me a free car, right? You can also get it to do lots of other things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the interest has been actually in the positive direction, because what used to be a nice to have when the technology for recommended algorithms was still there, now it's everywhere. Lots of people are talking about AI security. Lots of people are looking for guardrails. And before, there just wasn't much interest. So I'd say things are getting better than worse.
Yeah, I kind of want to jump in here because maybe again my position is a bit more extreme. I also have the luxury not working, for a big industry company. So I think from my perspective, the investments that the big AI companies are making in those fields are needed and are a good step. I don't think they will be alone by itself. I am actually also doing quite a bit of research on the topic of AI and election safety, and it kind of links to what you said because it's a similar topic. How do we deal with mis and disinformation in our societies? That is obviously getting enhanced by AI. And you mentioned the point, I think we have to think about the full value chain, right? You mentioned distributors, but even if we start above that, the foundation model providers, I think we need to ask them to better know who their customers are. If you think about the financial sector, banks are required to have a know your customer policy in place. I think we should think about similar things for foundation models as well. And on the distribution side, so that's predominantly social media, as you said, I am fully convinced that we, first of all, need effective watermarking to better understand, what kind of content is being created. But we need to hold those platforms accountable to label and also pull down nefarious content. Otherwise, I think it will be very, very hard to get control back of our information ecosystem.
Now, Hollywood.
I want to
Sorry,
add
go on,
another
please.
layer. Yeah, the other angle I want to chime in from is I think we
you
haven't
hold your
done.
mic a little closer to your mouth?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we have done enough. So
Yeah.
on top of the guardrail we talked about, I think the other missing link is actually data. Especially because I work in emerging markets. Some of the challenges I see is actually data paucity. And those communities are being marginalized because they do not have the data to train the next generation of large language model. I know we have a lot of investors out there. So before you think about investing into infrastructure, algorithms, we need to think about to invest into data collection as well.
Excellent.
And one last thing I want to add there is that just taking that even a step further, we need to incentivize and make it more clear for AI developers so that the problem is there. The solution is going to be there. That's the easiest place to make the meaningful change is the people who are developing with AI. We need to give them better tools and also more incentives, right? They're busy people. They have bosses telling them to make all kinds of AI-first decisions, AI-enabled decisions, right? And that's their focus, right? Because things are moving so fast. There's already a louder conversation, like I said before, but that conversation needs to be so loud that there's no other option but to have safe AI for everyone.
Excellent. Last lightning question. Hollywood has us afraid of artificially sentient AI. That's an AI that's not directed or prompted. It decides it hates humanity because it's a sentient being. We've made a lot of progress on normal AI. Have we made any progress, yes or no, on sentience? Like, do you see a sentient AI in the next 5 years? Each of you.
Well, probably. I think technology has been accelerating in an unprecedented speed. So even from Nvidia, it's hard to see what will happen next. We are driving a lot of new initiatives. In the next phase, we believe we will begin to see physics AI, which is basically a combination of physics and artificial intelligence. And this is already being utilized in creating digital twins for manufacturing, climate tech, so on and so forth. So I think we're shooting for impossible.
All right, I'm going to keep it short here. As Chief Hugging Officer, I love humans, right? I love people. On a personal note, I've always loved people more than technology. That's why I got more and more closer to sales. But I'm a lot more scared of humans than I am of robots. And everything you mentioned, right? Like, how many people decided themselves, hey, maybe we should go, mess some things up in another country, right? No one thinks that, but collectively, everyone thought that, right? Because they wanted a nice algorithm, and the algorithm does really well. Lots of people use Facebook. And I'm not here to bash Facebook. It's just that I think humans are scary, and that's what we should be scared of. It's a nice trope that Terminator is going to come out, but I think we should focus on improving human systems because that's where the problems have been.
I think building on that, focusing too much on that question, I think, can also be a bit of a distraction. I'm not going to say I have the technical answer. Honestly, those guys here are much closer to the technical details. But we have a lot of issues to solve when it comes to short-term risks of AI. We talked about AI ethics, AI safety, etc. As Elon Musk said the other day, there's a 80% chance if we get to AGI, it's going to be great and fine. There's a 20% chance or so that's going to end up terribly. If that happens, I guess then it's too late anyway. So let's focus on the things that we can address right now, and then for the rest, we can just cross our fingers and see if it works out or not.
Excellent. So we're out of time. If there's one burning question, put your hand up right now. Otherwise, I'd just like to all put your hands together for Wei, Derek, and Patrick. Thank you very much.